talk about the do not call list requirements, commonly referred to as the National DNC Registry. Okay, so here, this is a really important loophole that they're closing. It's emphasizing that businesses must screen text message lists. So you can't get around the loophole and text people who are on the do not call list. They aren't going to change the name to like do not text registry. Do not call registry is still going to be the name, but it protects people from calls and text messages, right? That's one of the biggest loopholes they've closed. I also think they've closed a couple other things in that you need prior express written consent for text messages in general. And so no matter what, you're going to want prior express written consent. If they're on the DNC or not, you're going to want prior express written consent. But they've definitely closed the loophole that you've got to screen text message list from the DNC so that there's just no question about it. You can't text people who are on the DNC registry. Now, I'm going to point out a couple things that are really important here, okay? TCPA laws are designed to protect consumers and businesses from AI, robo-dialing, pre-recorded voice, simulated voice, voicemail drops, that kind of technology that lets you do like really mass outreach with synthetic voice. It's less protective from doing those activities with manual calling, okay, and manual texting. There's some ambiguity there. And so if your team is doing all this stuff manually, I still think it's risky. I do have another chapter on why I would suggest not doing any cold outreach anymore at all via voice or text of any kind, because I just don't think it's worth it to get in trouble with the TCPA. I think most calling technology would be considered a robodial in modern day. So I don't know how you're going to get around not getting in trouble for it. But there's also some other language in the final chapter of TCPA that we'll get into about businesses versus consumers that I think by the time you watch that video, you're going to agree with me that it's just too risky. So we're going to continue on, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that I'm not a big fan of cold calling or cold texting people on or not on the DNC. Even if it doesn't have prior express written consent, I just in general think you shouldn't do it. So without further ado, let's get into the best practices. So you do need to screen text message lists against the DNC. You need to get access to the DNC registry and screen all recipients. You need to regularly update those messaging lists against the registry at least every 31 days. I would suggest doing it more frequently than that, and then automate the process of screening against these lists so that you don't have to do it manually. Just make it easy on yourself, right? That's what the TCPA is saying here. You need to have clear opt-out mechanisms for texts. Basically, you need to make it really clear that they can opt out and tell them how. You need to honor opt-outs immediately, and you need to then suppress anyone who's opted out from any channel of future communication for any reason. They've revoked consent, and what that means is if they revoke consent for text, they're now revoking consent for all channels. Call, email, WhatsApp, doesn't matter. You can't use it to contact them anymore. And so, Pitchit makes this easy. We do, obviously, if someone opts out, we make it so you can't communicate with them inside of that workflow on any channel anymore because they've revoked your consent for that use case. The other one is you need prior express written consent if you're going to text people, okay? So I'm not really sure why they clarify that you need to screen against the DNC registry for text messages and then also say you need prior express written consent for text messages, because this one's more strict than this one, but they're both basically regulating text messages. So I don't know why they didn't just include this one and not even clarify this. I think it's because they just wanted to make it really clear that they've closed the DNC loophole and that it now is going under the new TCPA prior express written consent rules. And we've gone through this in a previous chapter, but I'll summarize it. You need explicit language for consent, specificity on who you are, the purpose of the contact, and what channels you'll use to contact them. And then you need to retain proof of that consent, timestamps, language used, etc. Next one, record keeping for compliance is important. So you do need to keep a record so that they know that you've been you've been screening the text lists against the national DNC. You need to keep logs of who's opted out and when they opted out. And then you need to keep logs. You basically have a burden of proof that you've been capturing consent. So timestamps, the language, the collection method, etc. needs to all be stored. And then the final one, contacting people who have opted in that are already on the DNC registry but have opted in to receive contact from you. So basically you've captured prior express written consent from someone, but they're on the DNC list. This is a question that we get a lot. I want to clear this up. So if someone's given you prior express written consent, you're allowed to contact that person via AI text messaging and calling if you want to, even if they're on the DNC. And that's because the DNC does not override the new TCPA laws, right? That's a super important thing. We've had some customers of Pitchit say, I got 1,000 leads, and then I screened it against the, I got 1,000 leads that we captured prior express written consent from last month, and then I screened it against the DNC and removed 100, so we only have 900 we can contact and pitch it. That is not true. You have 1,000. You can contact all 1,000. The DNC list is not going to supersede someone giving you prior express written consent, okay? You don't have to take a list you have captured consent from and remove anyone who's on the DNC. For example, if I'm on the DNC and then I give someone prior express written consent to call me and text me with AI, they can call me and text me with AI. If I am not on the DNC and I give prior express written consent, they can also call me and text me with AI. That's why why I said earlier, I'm not sure why they really even keep the DNC language around, because the prior express written consent supersedes it and is just a lot more clear and modern than the DNC rules. But either way, that's how they're written, and this is a common question we get a lot of times. So don't screen your lists from the DNC. If they've given you prior express written consent, you're just throwing leads away that are compliant. And without further ado, that covers all the new updates to the do not call list requirements.